All right, now let's get to some of this other good stuff. Soundbite. Let's see. We've got soundbite number 3. Soundbite number 3, I believe, is where we'd like to start. Here's Anthony Fauci. He was talking to CNN, and this is still John Berman, right? And he's like, oh, well, the Chinese, oh, sure, like the Chinese created a virus that would kill their own people, like the Chinese would kill their own people. This is Dr. Fauci. I guess he's spent all of his time on medicine, and he's not much of a historian, because the Chinese Communist Party has murdered between 50 million of their own people and 75 million of their own people. They've murdered plenty of other people around the world as well. They're communists, okay? And here's Anthony Fauci talking to his friend John Berman, a Democrat Party apparatchik at CNN. Oh, sure, the Chinese, the most murderous regime in the history of humanity. And Fauci scoffs at the idea that they would recklessly cause the deaths of Chinese subjects. They're not citizens. They don't have legitimate elections. They're not armed. They're subjects of an authoritarian communist regime. Anthony Fauci.
The idea, I think, is quite far-fetched that the Chinese deliberately engineered something so that they could kill themselves as well as other people. I think that's a bit far out, John.
You think that's a bit far out, John? You do. Is that right? Maybe if I were the anchor, I'd say, well, perhaps you're unaware of the fact that the communist regime, which is still in existence, the descendants of Chairman Mao, have murdered tens of millions of their own people and have no regard for human life, as has been the case with communists and communism for at least a century. They've murdered more than 100 million people in the name of bringing out their utopia. There's a West Point graduate who was chosen to be Secretary of State by President Trump. His name is Mike Pompeo. He also took up this same issue.
Here we are on the 32nd anniversary of Tiananmen Square, where we saw the brutality of this regime, a regime that doesn't care about human life. For Dr. Fauci to go out and think for a moment that the Chinese Communist Party cared that there were people in Wuhan that were dying, whether it was Chinese people or Americans, whoever else might be there, is just naive beyond all possible imagination. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't care for a moment. They have no desire for the world to know what happened.
And it's like they care if they die. It reminds me of Patrick McGowan in the movie Braveheart, when they're taking on, the Mel Gibson Scottish brigades. And he has the archers, the British king, Patrick McGowan, Longshanks or whatever, and he has his archers. He orders his archers to fire arrows into the crowd while the British infantry troops are fighting the Scottish. And his adjutant says, but sir, you'll kill our own men. And Longshanks, the Patrick McGowan British king character, says, they'll kill theirs too.
I beg pardon, sire. Won't we hit our own troops?
Yes, but we'll hit theirs as well.
Yeah, like the Chinese care, honestly. You're really going to pretend that the Chinese Communist Party cares about whether Chinese people die? Honestly? Missed history class every day for your whole life, I guess.